We've got about half an hour now. Right, Kieran, welcome to the BASIS project, but more importantly, we're launching BASIS TIs, targeted individuals, and we're both going to a conference shortly, and maybe when we get there, this is in Brussels, so this is in the BASIS project's new headquarters, and you are part of the Ninja Painters, not the Ninja Painters.
Jedi.
The Jedi. This is the subliminal advertising using the Ninja Turtle movie all over the place. So you are a Jedi painter.
No, I'm not a Jedi.
From Croydon?
They're Jedis.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
I recruited the Jedis.
So we have the Jedi here painting the BASIS project's new headquarters.
Indeed.
And they're from Croydon.
Yeah.
And you're from Croydon.
Yeah.
Great. I think that's enough about Croydon. But they have a belief system and they're very positive.
Yeah.
But the important thing is, as we rush through this, because we're catching a plane to Las Vegas and then we're catching a train to Brussels about targeted individuals. And Dr. Rowney Kilda will be speaking there. And Dr. Rowney Kilda opened up the whole question of mind control. Many years ago, maybe 15 years ago, she was touring and talking about that publicly. And she is being gaslighted.
Yeah.
And just to introduce that concept, gaslighting is basically stalking people. And tonight, as I said, happy birthday to Rowney. Rowney's 75 years old on Sunday.
Wow.
And I was hoping to be at her birthday, but I can't, because I'm in the States. And just to underline the point, my phone, I was using a Skype phone contact with her tonight, only about an hour and a half ago, was cut off, and they really meant it. And I couldn't call her back. So this really brings us right to the point of gang stalking, targeted individuals, and cyborgs. So Kieran, hello.
Hello. I suppose first of all what I wanted to do was thank Sam the man and his family and the like for not only allowing me to speak at Probe, but for the hospitality they extended to me as well. But also came here to explain what actually happened to me there when I stood up to speak.
Well, something dramatically happened now that you've mentioned that Probe conference, and we'll use this as a means of introducing the UFO.
Indeed, which has completely blown my mind. To be frank with you, I've been updating my thought processes since. In fact, I'm still at it because you'll know as well as anybody else, I was adamant that this was nothing to do with UFOs, aliens, the unknown per se. Because
the Probe conference isn't a UFO conference.
No.
It has UFO subjects at it.
Yeah.
But one of the speakers, who's a friend of mine from Ireland, Sweeps Fox.
Yeah.
And he appeared on a few of my pirate stations in the good old days. Almost 10 years ago now they took it off. But he was specifically told he was not allowed to speak at that conference. And then we have this UFO, and you were targeted.
I was prevented from speaking.
So anyway,
properly, yeah.
What happened?
Well, I stood up. It's not, that unusual for me, but in public it's not so common to be targeted that way. Some form of directed energy weaponry. It was going straight through me. That's what it felt like anyway. And I was also moving in and out of sort of like awareness essentially as to where I was. I stood in front of an audience and I'm drifting, and I had to keep sort of like snapping myself back in.
What's happening to you when that happens? What do you feel?
Well, it's various. I mean, when I spoke at your conference, the initial one, I had a lot of facial pain. This is around my cheekbones and my eye sockets, my skull per se.
Now, was that just first-time nerves?
No, not at all. No, it's pain. It's pain that's inflicted predominantly by these implants that are attached to the back of my upper jaws. They bend like fingers do, as I've described many times. Also, I've got a moving implant at the base of my spine as well.
Bit like Dave Marrow.
Yeah, well, there's another guy I've come across now who seems to have, well, from what he's described, identical technology inside of him that I have. He's even taken a scalpel and a pair of pliers to one and pulled one out. He got so desperate.
It's big enough to do that. I mean, you can,
Yeah. I mean, the telescopic. I mean, they can extend probably to about 1.5 inches. They have been today. Yesterday morning, they extended whilst I was here. This inflicts pain. It's just strange. It's almost indescribable. But it's a horror show, basically. This is done, I would say, to subdue. It's bizarre. It is absolutely bizarre. You know, moving implants inside one's person, connected to your skeleton. Now, it's beyond the scope of anyone's imagination to try and get a handle on this, to imagine what it would be like.
but we have to get a handle on this.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
going to have to really learn and understand this very quickly.
Well, this chap Jed, his dentist, has taken an X-ray of his face and has explained he's still got a piece of metal in his jaw. So, like myself, they are attached to this area at the back of the jaw there. They extend into the fleshy areas of my throat, essentially. But given that they're attached to the skeleton, they cause an awful lot of pain when they move, because they're irresistible force they bend with, and they can hold their position or they can move in any direction.
Apart from causing pain, why would they be there? Or what's the function?
I would say the function of those implants is purely to inflict pain, to subdue, to control. Thanks, Dave.
We have the mysterious hand, but we can't get up and get those hands. Could the mysterious Jedi please give us the cups of tea, please? You might as well be in shock, but we've talked about you.
Young masters.
Indeed.
No sugar in that one.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sugar in that one. So. Okay.
The mysterious Jedi is now
Can you
leaving
film
the
this, sir?
We've plugged you. We've plugged you.
Plug.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now back to these implants.
Oh God, that's got 1,000 tons of sugar in it. Anyway, yeah.
Oh, I don't take sugar either. Yeah. There's one other aspect of these implants that we're discussing now that, you know, I can't be definitive about it, but they do appear at times to release some form of energy. I can't state whether that's true or whether it's not, but it certainly feels that way. But I can't think of any other reason other than to subdue somebody. Bearing in mind as well.
Where else are your implants? You got them in the back of the neck and everything.
Yeah, I've got the concentration of wetware is at the back of my head here. There's some
And you call them wetware. What's
wetware. That's a technical term for this technology.
okay?
As I've said as well, I've got another major implant at the base of my spine, but I'm quite literally wired up with microwiring as well, which connects these.
Yeah.
I don't have any evidence of what's below my neck because of the.
I'll just check the shot occasionally. Yeah. Okay.
You're just what? Sorry.
Just make sure you're in focus and everything.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, but essentially, yeah, I'm implanted from my head to my feet. You could look at it as though I'm some form of antennae, but essentially the probes that are in these bony cavities behind the ear, in the cochlear region here,
Yeah.
the probes inserted in my brain are thereafter connected to the other wetware around my head and thereafter throughout my body. Essentially, this is where the control comes in, the mind control comes in. Because they're connected directly to my brain can be taken over. And thereafter, these implants being connected to my brain are thereafter connected to the rest of my body. So robotized essentially is what I've been. Of course, you know, when people are talking to me and, you know, asking me questions and exploring it for themselves, I can seem quite normal. Which I do much of the time, but I've had demonstrations of just about everything over the years, and yeah, I am at times like a spectator in my own body.
Now, the reason why I mentioned Dave Marrow is because he is from bases 7 or 8 or something. Now he, down at Taunton, he would hulk out. But you mentioned something about that. You wanted to get in contact with Dave if he's watching.
Yeah, first of all, Dave, you know, hats off to you for, you know, dealing with this as well as you seem to. And Dave is one of the people I related to early on when I started researching. There are a lot of parallels with his story and my story. The technology he has inside of him, which it looks categorically to be the case, the scarring's there, is concentrated in similar areas.
Now, it has to be said that Mike Oram described a similar kind of thing in him, and he actually removed it. And I think also Alistair had a similar kind of thing with legs on it and things, or it had many little sections of it, but it seems to be similar.
Okay,
Have you seen that?
As I mentioned at Probe, there's a chap called John Nicholson, Cyborg Nicholson. He actually changed his name while he was over here because it was the only form of legal acknowledgement he could get. John's evidence is irrefutable. I mean, he's having evidence, he's having operations. He's filming the operations, he's retaining the implants, and he's getting the medical documentation to support this.
Now, this is very important because an awful lot of people who, once they get the implants, seem to be programmed to throw them away or to put them down the toilet. He's the first person I've heard who's retained something like that.
Yeah, well, I mean, I had about 40 because a lot of his are minute, they were tiny. And I had them in glass bottles in my kitchen for about a year and a half, essentially. But I did the same thing, to be honest. I had a clean out. This was during one of my, what do we call them, episodes. It's when the mind control is cranked up. A lot of what I experienced, as I said, is bizarre at these times, but it makes complete sense. It's also cumulative. It's been going on for years. And what it feels like to me, essentially, is that the two worlds I deal with, the reality that we're all aware of, that I'm touching, feeling, tasting now, and the virtual reality. Now, during these periods, the two seem to cross over.
What do you mean by that? Because this is one of the crucial things about the Rendlesham Forest situation. It seems to be some kind of reality projection locations, virtual reality.
Reality management, I think
I
turned it before.
I call it reality management system.
Yeah, it's just, again, to rationalise this and explain it to somebody in a nutshell, I don't think it's possible, to be frank. It is so extreme. And as hard as I've tried to nail it down, I can't. It's beyond my comprehension. But whilst I'm dealing with this, the V2K is cranked up. This isn't negative.
And again, this is another phrase, V2K.
Voice to school technology.
Okay.
We've just been sat down watching Dr. Barry Trower on the internet downstairs.
Yeah, and Kathy Morgan had some communication with him.
She has she? Okay. Well, the thing is, as Dr. Trower said, that's an easy function for them to do. You know, during my research, I found out that the first non-classified demonstration of it was done in 1974, the Walter Reed Army Institute in America. So, you know, I've been dealing with V2K for years, and in fact,
can somebody look that up? The voice to skull technology?
Sure, just Google it. You know, there's lots of.
What was that again? Just to make it clear, if somebody wanted to research it.
Voice to skull technology.
At what was the demonstration that you referred to?
Oh, the Walter Reed Army. I read it in an article. In fact, it's mentioned on my blog actually. If
people, sorry to interrupt again, but if people want to get to your blog, could you tell them how they can do that?
Google Chronicles of a Mind Control Target.
Okay. Yeah. For instance, if you make a little reference like that, if you could sort of people might just be able to research it themselves.
Sure. I'm not that au fait with these things, but I'm getting there, Miles. Sorry, where were we? The V2K.
Yeah, the first declassified demonstration of it, 1974.
1974.
Yeah. At
the Walter Reed Army Institute.
Okay.
In America. Yeah. Pretty famous place, essentially. But again, as I say to Dr. Trower said, this is a very simplistic function. It's two-way radio, essentially. And as he explained as well, it's not thoughts, although some of what I experience it depends on what I'm dealing with at the time. You can literally physically hear these voices. This isn't something coming from, there's no ideation, it's not coming from your own mind, it's somebody speaking inside your head.
It's also described as synthetic telepathy.
Synthetic telepathy, yeah, exactly that. That's probably the more technical phrase for it, yeah.
Well, I'm sure there's different names for it, but you hear your thoughts, but they're not yours, they're somebody else's.
No, not thoughts, voices.
Okay.
At times, and at other times, it's thought. I mean, this is actually brain-to-brain link or brain-to-computer link. This is what I meant by the virtual world that I deal with, I'm hooked into. It's a computer, essentially.
Yeah.
But I cannot explain other things, how things are coordinated around me. Other than, well, I can state that when I'm going through these episodes as well, there are boots on the ground involved as well, because things are manipulated around me. It seems to perpetuate things.
In what way? I mean, we've just had a few demonstrations of that at the weekend where the keys for this house disappeared,
Yeah.
and then in Wales they reappeared in the front of my car.
Yeah, well, when this sort of thing starts to happen, I mean, that's not serious, is it? And it's also questionable. This is quite often the beginning of gaslighting.
Yes.
It starts off mildly.
Now, gaslighting, could you explain what that means?
Well, gaslighting is meant to cause mental disturbance.
It comes from a film with young man Mason. What's his name?
I don't know the origin of it.
The film was about. I keep on forgetting the guy's name. Mason is a wonderful English actor, and he started to make his wife appear to be suicidal and as if she was going mad by turning the gas lights down in the house, and then everybody else pretended nothing was happening.
That sounds like, yeah.
But she was made to feel as if she was going mad.
Yeah.
And that's where the slang term gaslighting comes from.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll actually get.
Well, that fits because that's its function. It's meant to cause mental disturbance. Likewise with the voices. I mean, it's been used on me to cause disturbance. It's called confusion weaponry when it's used in that sense. But as I've explained to teams of doctors now as well, they were at a complete loss as to how I've managed to deal with things from a psychological perspective myself. And I will say that I don't believe that a singular human being, without the support I get, could have possibly, come through everything I've been through and remained intact.
Yeah.
And as I explained to them, I get counselling. And it's V2K, it's voice to school technology, but it's genius counselling, and it's via people that know my life inside out.
So they are actually helping.
Yes.
The synthetic telepathy is helping
Yes.
you deal with your implants.
It's been nothing but beneficial for years. When I use the word genius, I mean it. I've met some incredibly talented and effective people within, medical establishments, but nowhere near the capability of whoever's behind this. And it's a collective as well, it's not one person.
So just to avoid the confusion, you seem to be getting help with this technology, but at the same time you're getting tremendous pain.
That's exactly it, yeah. I mean, this phrase, it was Tom that brought up. I watched the interview, I hadn't seen that. Tom said I described myself as a super soldier. I didn't. I'm not having a pop at you, Tom, by the way.
I think the super soldier term is
it's a marketing phrase.
It's a marketing function, but it's stuck. Anyway.
It's okay. I mean, what I explained to Tom was, and I didn't really know much. I certainly didn't know the super soldier issue had a captive audience via yourself and the like. Dave Marrow's the only video of yours I'd watched at that time, and I'd read one small article on it. But I've been explaining to people for years what I've been dealing with, and it was years ago that I was told via V2K that what I am is a soldier, but not of the traditional kind. And this was very, very early on. And this is what I said to Tom, as I said to other people. I've actually explained to them what I've had explained to me in my head. And this concurs as well with experiences I've had. And in fact, it was when a second personality started crawling out of me quite some time ago now that this became very evident too. And of course, beyond that, I researched it and found out that, yeah, this technology is being developed for soldiers, and also that even without the technology, they have the ability to create separate mind alters within a person's mind.
Now that's the MK Ultra type of thing.
This is
or
Monarch programming.
Monarch programming.
Or in the Project Mannequin in this country. Every mind
Can you
control.
describe what you think Project Mannequin is or was?
Well, Project Mannequin, I've always just assumed is the British version of the American. What do you call it?
And
Of Monarch programming.
yeah, and when did you sort of hear about Mannequin before?
Sorry?
When did you first hear about Project Mannequin?
Well, just researching. I actually it was after when James Casbolt first came onto the scene. He used to write quite a lot. I hadn't watched his videos with himself, but I used to read a lot. And I read some of James's stuff, and it started to make sense to me. And I believe I heard the phrase
Because that came straight from Barry King in the Berkshire base at Peasmore.
Yeah.
The Project Mannequin base, which we'd also hoped to have a wonderful film for the film festival, The Machine, which is actually filmed at Greenham Common, which is one of the entrances to the base there.
Yeah.
But that's a bit of historical stuff that we're just throwing in there.
Yeah.
What do you feel you're being trained for?
I believe I'm operational. I don't think I think I'm beyond training, but I'll also state that this technology really would have terminated my life years ago if a dentist hadn't removed my wisdom teeth. Essentially, my teeth were going through into an area here which the implants are based. So they were growing into the implants, thereafter pushing into my molars and pulling them out of my teeth. The pain I was in those days was...
So the teeth were growing into the implants, which were anchored
There was no
to your
room.
skull.
There was no room for the wisdom teeth to come through, and I kept going to private dentists who were telling me, "You're an emergency. You've got to go to a hospital. These have to come out." I had about this much gap in my throat. My face was swollen out of here, and also I was crumpled up. I had a wire coming out of my.
But the thing about
armpit.
wisdom teeth is that means that you must have had those implants installed at quite a young age.
Well, what's in my head went in at 10 years of age.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, a story I believe I don't know if I did explain it in my speech, but yes. Again, probe. It wasn't just the targeting which threw me a little bit there. I stood up a probe to tell the audience there what had happened to me, and because it started when I was a child. There's no doubt in my mind that my parents facilitated this. People say to me, "Why you?" I say, "Well, largely I think because I was available, because I had parents who were willing to."
But you also have a striking resemblance to certain members of a certain house in
Oh yeah, that one.
certain king.
Well, you know, really.
Do you think that that's more than a coincidence? We're referring to one that had to.
Edward the
start
Eighth.
with-
Yeah. No, I think when I watch the video of your conference, I'm looking at that. I'm looking at my father's face, what I believe is my biological father. So that goes out of my head. But I was at pains there to explain that. Look, this is what I've been told in my head. It's not something that I've invented or. I actually came out with it. Because I expected after I'd stood up and I'd said these things that people would attack me, because that's what I seek, really, confrontation. I've been flip-flapping around for years trying to get something done about this, but right across the board, this is what people can't get their heads around. A chap called Robert Naseland emailed me this morning. Robert's a very, very famous person in the world of mind control, because I think he's just about the only one who's had brain implants removed, and it was the head of the Supreme Court in Sweden that arranged that operation for him. But he watched my speech and he emailed me this morning and he said, "Look, I liked it," he said, "but I wish you'd added some more facts," and also pointed out to people the sinister fact that doctors who are trained and highly paid to look after people's minds and bodies are actually actively involved in destroying them. TIs are they're becoming more and more commonplace.
In other words, if you hear voices in your head, it's schizophrenic.
Yeah, of course,
And then you go walled off to a mental institution.
But what people need to understand is that they do this purposely. They mimic schizophrenia. And then they go and speak. Anyone who goes to speak to a professional, the professional has been trained to diagnose anybody, describing these symptoms as a schizophrenic or whatever label they want to slap on you. But the fact is, I don't, and neither do a lot of other targets. I don't display a lot of symptoms that schizophrenics do, and it's certainly not schizophrenia. For the record, I have met with a lot of psychiatrists and psychologists now, all of whom would accept what I'd explained to them. But thereafter said as well that I was beyond their combined educations and that any treatment they could offer me was liable to be inappropriate. And again, essentially...
Well, we've got about 5 minutes left in this little initial update to introduce TIs.
Sure, yeah.
What do you want to talk or say to targeted individuals? Because the BASIS project has included the alien component a lot.
Yeah.
But the BASIS targeted individuals, but the whole point of this is just to get them to take the first few steps. And then all the other stuff maybe could follow later. But this is a special group to allow targeted individuals to come forward and talk about their experiences and feel that whilst they've got this thing, or at least whatever's happening to them, they can somehow get together and start taking the first steps to getting help and doing something about this.
Well, we're working on it, Miles. Me and several other people on setting up some kind of network. Some kind of support network and educational network as well.
Yeah, this is very important.
I know. Not just the likes of. No, sorry. It's very, very important to everybody, essentially, that this issue is accepted as reality. Which I'm pleased that you've made the decision now to separate it.
Yes,
from the BASIS project, because this is not the unknown. This can be easily proven.
Yeah, let's take grounding, concrete steps to understand this technology. The other person which has greatly helped in this is Marie Kayali, who suffered tremendously after she did recordings with me this summer, as she did the last time. And to help her heal, all of that has been taken off, although maybe at some time it'll come back. But the whole point is that when a TI speaks out, they can get tremendous retribution as if something else takes over.
Yeah, there's so much I want to say, but essentially, I do believe I'm a soldier. Forget the term super soldier.
Well, my name is Miles, and that's Miles actually. That's Latin for soldier.
Well, there you go. You're certainly a soldier, Miles.
Well, I think we've done very well to sort of get this ball rolling. We're in a very temporary situation here. You've got the paintbrush here, and the brand new walls all being painted. But next time we'll be meeting, we'll be in Brussels. And maybe, depending on what happens there, we can continue this in slightly more lavish.
Yeah, I think we should. It is so important, and the biggest problem that TIs have is Joe Public, is the general populace. It's, as I've said before, again, we're constantly preoccupied with defending ourselves. This is one of the biggest problems we have, because we don't get to move forward. It's negative as well. It's difficult enough to deal with without being pilloried left, right and centre.
Jean McDonald, who is another, she came along initially with the MASH thing, MASH project thing. She managed to overcome an awful lot of the targeting, but she was getting verifiable measurements of microwave radiation, of different scalar energies. All kinds of things were happening, and her dog was reacting to it. So, and there are instrumentation. She was getting verifiable positive readings of energies entering and being targeted on her house. So this greatly empowered her, and now she was at the conference as well, and she's looking very, very well. So we can overcome this.
Of course, but the thing is, the most important people in this, and I'll call it a game because that's how I've dealt with it, are the uninitiated. The people who who won't believe this because it's not in the mainstream media. They are the most important people. As soon as those people wake up and accept this, we can do something.
Well, talking about mainstream media, Nina Valentine has been producing a very excellent series of, she's doing her own presentations. These are targeted individuals, these are people who are being in MK Ultra, doing their own research, like Kathy and Nina and yourself, have been able to talk publicly about this. And just what you mentioned there, mainstream media is extremely heavily controlled to precisely keep the population
Well, let's make the point. I've been interviewed by a national newspaper which launched an investigation, concluded that I was telling the truth and that the state was covering up, and then informed me that they'd been censored. Not only that they weren't even aware of the authority they were dealing with, which was unprecedented for them. They were just flatly told no. And they had the proof. Now that is going off right across the board. Right across the board. Yeah. So it's being suppressed and denied, whichever way we turn as targets. In fact, the quote is, it's the intelligence agencies. There is a global intelligence agency agreement in place to suppress and deny any information relating to the use or deployment of this technology at all. And that's the only reason they're getting away with it. And it is torture and it is murder.
This is ritual child slaughter, and just tonight they've announced a Ministry of Defence probe said no evidence, move along, basically.
Yeah.
But really this is just a sort of a taster for basis TIs and targeted individuals. There's a lot of work to do here, a lot of positive steps to take, and with the help of yourself and others and you out there.
Well, there's hope. If you're being targeted, there is hope. Yeah, I mean, the climate is most definitely changing. I mean, I've been hammering away at this for 15 years now. I've been living with it, you know, my entire life. But the targeting has only become as extreme as it has since I was in around about my mid-30s. But there is hope. And I don't like to think that there's going to be anybody else that's implanted to the degree that the likes of I and Dave Marrow are, and one or two other people I know, because the technology's moved on as well.
I mean, there's an awful lot to talk about on this fibre stuff that one of your other colleagues been taken out, like some kind of tendrilic fibres in the body.
Microwires. Yeah, I mean, we've got, you know, pictures of surgeons pulling the skin back, showing the wiring under the skin, as well as X-rays showing the network of microwires throughout his body.
I mean, this does seem very like cyborg, like the Borg.
It is, you know, and there's so much I want to say, Miles. Yeah. There's absolutely so much I want to say. I know we don't today. Yeah.
And this is just a starter.
Sure.
Thank you very much for doing this. It's a bit of a hectic sort of last minute thing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And we'll take this forward.
Yes, please. Yeah, and if there's anybody from the Department of Work and Pensions watching, I've hardly done a thing. I'm in too much pain, so don't think you can phone me up and get me back to work either. I'll mention that. I've even get disability benefits. Disability benefits off of the government because I took in my scans and explained what was happening. The first doctor I was dealing with broke down. The second came in and said, look, I'm a doctor, I can read MRI scans, you're telling the truth. We're going to give you your benefits, they'll be in your bank in the morning, but don't come back to us. We don't want to know. They then wrote to my doctor and said, you don't need to put in any more sick notes for this person. And I've been living on benefits now for, 6 years, since I just couldn't carry on work. I can't stick to timetables, you know, I can't commit to things, I can't plan. And I do mean this literally. If anybody, generally speaking, could feel what I'm feeling now, which isn't intense, you would be screaming from the rooftops, panicking. What on earth is going on? You know, I'm just conditioned to this. I've been dealing with it for, decades, literally. And I can manage to function and kind of ignore it, you know. Essentially it's disassociation again. But if they crank it up, they can stop me doing anything, you know. I mean, the pain it's just horrific. It's just the movement of these things is one thing. Sometimes it feels like it's burning out of my body.
After the basis conference, you felt as if your whole skin was on fire?
Yeah, well, that's quite common. That went on for weeks. I was hammered. Heart bouncing off my rib cage, and you know, people that know me locally, they'll see me and they'll say, God, I saw you yesterday, you look like you were having a heart attack yesterday. And I know, I've been targeted, pretty heavily. And this, again, can go on for days. But then they'll see me and I seem perfectly all right to them. And I soldier on, for want of a better phrase. But it's just, it is an absolute horror show. But I'll repeat it again because I mean it. One of the worst aspects of it is, if not it's up there, is the fact that people still, even though you've got evidence, still won't believe. They still sit there throwing questions at you.
Implications which is so horrendous.
It's fear of being, taken for, other people taking them for a fool. I think it's...
Well, before we run out of chip instead of tape,
Sure.
Thanks very much. We'll take it from here. The basis TI is now go.
Brillo, yeah.
And we'll put this together with your pro conference, lecture, if you wish.
Yeah, again, I haven't seen it myself. I mean, I'm not exactly...
Well, we'll see. We haven't even got it out of the...
Yeah, but I'm not... I wasn't... I said to you immediately afterwards, well, that was an exercise in public humiliation. But the lady you spoke about, the older lady at your conference, that's definitely implanted as well, had part of her spine removed. She repeated it. This system is about disempowerment and humiliation. It is horrific, for any human.
But this is the end of humanity. This is basically the end of humanity.
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope not.
Only
Because
because-
honestly, however they sell it to you, and they are in the mainstream media at the moment, they're conditioning everybody's minds to accept this technology. Whatever you do, don't listen to them. Because once you're implanted, you've got zero privacy 24/7. Your entire life is being recorded. You can be targeted, with all sorts of horrific... by all sorts of horrific technological means. It is just hell on earth. It's
Okay.
it's the pit, man. Don't buy it. Don't buy into it, whatever you do. And please, please, please stop denying it's happening, because I want it out of me. I'm going to Thailand. I'm perhaps going to go to Russia and seek asylum as well. I'm not sure yet, but I do believe that there's collusion at the top level right around the world anyway, so I'm not so sure I'd get very far if I went to another country to claim asylum.
Running away from the problem when it's inside is happening.
Exactly, but there are neurosurgeons in Asia, I'm told, that will be willing to entertain the prospect of removing some of this. But as the doctor at King's Hospital, the doctor that told me what's wrong with me, one of his last words to me were, whatever you do, don't go private with this. And he actually booked me to go and see him again. But when I went back in a week later, I got a completely other doctor who denied that the meeting I had with the guy had ever taken place.
I don't want to run out mid-sentence here, but basically that means that this is on a much wider population scale. It must be immense.
We're all in great danger. Every single one of us. Every single one of us.
We're in great danger. We'll do it again, longer, different place.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Kieran.
That's all. Thanks, Miles.
Okay.
2, 0, 1, 2. Testing.
Which one do you want to use? Which mic, any?
Oh, both. If I stand here, then they get both, don't they? Do you want to go first, Sam?
Okay.
You all sat down, please. You take all your seats. Please. We're running a bit late. Thank you. Right, folks, our next speaker this afternoon is KieronTI. I'm not the first to meet him until today. He's got a hell of a lot of information to tell us. So all I can tell you about him is sit back and enjoy.
Hello. Can everybody hear me okay? We're okay. Right. Well, I gave a speech at Miles's first International Basis Conference. Some of you might have seen it on the internet, some of you might have been there. In that one, really, I concentrated on explaining what a TI is, which is what I am, a targeted individual. Can I have a show of hands here with regards to how many people know what a targeted individual is? Wow, pretty educated audience then. Okay. Yeah, well, I'm, as others are, of something that's denied essentially, but there are at least thousands of us all over the world, and I'm going to kick off with another one, a lady called Moo. If you want to do some research afterwards, she can be found on YouTube, and her tag is music is 2 words, 2 as in TWO, Moo. Moo is an adult lady actually. And like most TIs, she's grown up to find out that essentially she's been trafficked via a Catholic adoption agency. Moo actually was. Anyway, you know, after listening to Miles, I'm in a little bit of a quandary with regards to how far to take this in certain directions, because since I last spoke at Miles's conference, a lot of people have been in contact with me, really to appeal to me to keep things within certain parameters, because we are talking a small army of people here. Many of us implanted with technology, as am I. I'm going to go on, as Miles explained, to show you some of these scans of what's inside of me, but quite literally I am, from my head to my feet, wired up. I've got evidence of this, and evidence that I'm not the only one either. But rather than dwell here, because to be frank with you, my mind's racing a little bit at the moment with regards to which direction I'm going to take this. So she was very much appreciated last time around, so I'm going to kick off with this video of Moo. She does hide her identity, but essentially this is moving. This is the second video of hers I've showed. The first one was about targets and perpetrators. Essentially, we are the targets and the perpetrators are the people behind what's done to us, essentially. Again, you can catch up on that on the internet with regards to the videos Moo's produced, but also I do have my own blog, which is called Chronicles of a Mind Control Target. On the table over there, if anybody wants to pick up one of my cards before you leave, that's got my contact details on and my blog address. On there's an awful lot of information that I couldn't possibly cram in today. There is a video of the speech I gave at the last conference. There's more of Moo. I've also appeared on the radio since, and well, I've been invited to do an awful lot from this point onwards, but we'll see what happens beyond this. But I'll let Moo kick things off. This video is called, I believe it's Free Will or Lack of Free Will, but I'll just get straight into this and talk to you afterwards about what she's saying.
Hi guys, this video is going to be a real quick one about free will. I had some conversations with people online arguing about whether or not free will exists, especially in my case. They want to say that I do have free will. Well, if I do have free will, it's very limited. And here's some examples of why I think I don't have free will. I did not have the free will to choose to stay with my parents when this happened. I didn't have the free will to choose to be with one who would travel free if it was an accident. And I would say that because of some of the documentation read about my control issues and the great mental curves for a few seconds. I had the free will to be with a mother who would allow me to scream until I pass out in a crib. And I do remember crying out of the crib and falling on the floor. I didn't have the free will to be with parents who gave me positive reinforcement. Instead, I went to the parents who told me I was fat, a lot, stupid, and would never amount to anything. I didn't have the free will to be parents who were present. I didn't have the free will to be with parents who took an interest in my schoolwork and gave me initial values. I didn't have the free will to be in a family situation where I had a mother figure, role model. Until consequently, I ended up seeking a boyfriend to fulfill that father figure role, and I didn't really understand. I didn't have the free will to avoid negative programming when I was growing up. I didn't have the free will to not be exposed to certain horror films under the age of 9 that were definitely not appropriate. I didn't have the free will to not be raised in a house full of mirrors, and when I say full of mirrors, I'm not exaggerating. This house had mirrored wallpaper, mirrored coffee table, mirrored vacuum sets, mirrored sliding closet doors, mirrored planters, mirrored vertical blinds, mirrored switch plates and outlet covers, mirrored art on walls, mirrored cotton wool, and tissue dispensers. That said mirrored wallpaper, and that's the biggest one. Okay, I have my choice and I know about my control programming and the use of mirrors. And that's like half my childhood in this house. So I didn't have the free will to choose that. I didn't have the free will to say no to being made to wear a bikini to stuff like that instruction sites when I was 14 years old. And so, getting into adulthood, when your life is a reaction to negative programming, well, there's just not much to relate there, folks. Because negative programming, or programming by definition, means the opposite of free will. So I just want to put that out there, because I don't feel like I've had a lot of free will in me. I feel like my life has some reaction to negative programming. And I do see programming in movies, music, television, language. Oh yeah, and I did have the free will to choose not to have anything stuck in my head that was done without my consent. So while the Bible says that God gave human beings free will, I contend that human beings have taken free will away from other human beings. So, I don't know what to say, you know. I was searching for God on these original supplement, and so wondering the esoteric forms of mindful programming out there. But I surely tried with my prayers and understand what happened to me and forgive me for anything I did as a result of negative programming. Alright, thanks guys for watching. If you care, please click for me and comment if you're so inclined. Thanks, peace.
Yeah. What that was pain. Pain like you could not believe. She's a soldier, Moo. Every target that becomes aware of what's happening to them and why has a stark choice. It's fight or flight. Fight is essentially what Moo's doing. Flight is seeking another way out, which many do and are continuing to do as well. You'll have to excuse me too. I am suffering a little bit here myself. My nervous system is being hit. Whilst I'm not used to being wired up to this degree with all this technology around me and the like, I'm very used to being wired up because I am, as I've said, internally from my head to my feet with a network of micro wires and implants, the concentration of which is at the back of my head. This is called wetware. I've got T27 biomedical implants in the cochlear regions of my ear with probes inserted into the sutures of my brain. The wiring comes down through my neck, down my arms here, down through my body. It's around my waist, between my legs, and all the way down the back of my legs as well. Right down here. It stops underneath my feet. Joy, hey? Now, I'm a little bit thrown. I've got to be honest, last time I walked out to speak, it just came totally naturally because I talk about it all the time and I was able to march around the stage and I knew exactly what I wanted to say. Now, what came out of that speech, essentially from all the feedback I got, is the acceptance. because there's nothing theoretical about my circumstances. They are black and white, and they've been accepted by the authorities across the board. We're talking the media, we're talking law enforcement, we're talking the judiciary, we're even talking the medical environments as well. Now, the problem we've got is nobody will do a thing about it. I've known for years and years, I've even had the evidence for years and years as well. So essentially, you know, things are starting to take shape a little bit, the climate is changing, and we've got to find a way to do something about this, because there's lots of moves. You'll excuse me here, I'm not quite sure how to manage these microphones at the moment and turn around and point too, but I'll get there. Right, so let me move on quickly now to show you one of my scans. Here we go, that will do for starters. Voila. It's obvious, can you all see what's on there? In the cochlear regions of my head, can I use the pointer? There we go. There. And there. Is there? Brilliant, okay. Do I use that? Great, okay. Now, I was probably something in the region, I think I was about 34 years old when I was told what's wrong with me to my face by a doctor at King's Hospital in London. He told me what was wrong with me, and I wouldn't believe him either. I was in absolute agony, but my wisdom teeth were growing through. And I've also got implants attached to the back of my upper jaw, which are, I describe them like fingers really. They bend like this. They're also telescopic. They get in and out and they bend in any direction essentially, backwards, forwards, sideways. These being attached to my skeleton and very close to the facial nerve inflict an awful lot of pain. And then in turn, as I said, it's connected to a network of other wiring and implants throughout my body. Now, after being informed of this, the doctor that told me rebooked an appointment for me to return. Now, this is standard, well, practice for want of a better word, for targets. This is a reaction we get. I'm told categorically by a doctor what's wrong with me. I'll rebook an appointment to go back in. I don't get to meet the same doctor. I meet another doctor who flatly denies the initial meeting I had ever took place, then writes to my GP and accuses me of having mental problems. I didn't have access to any medical evidence back then either. And since, excuse me, I literally am being hit quite hard at the moment. My nervous system is rattling. So please bear with me. It goes, just let me take you on from this one as well and show you another. Oh, by the way, as well, you see below my brain here, below my brain, this area, that's a truss. It's more pronounced on one of the other scans I'll show you, but this also is connected to these implants here, which in turn are connected to this wiring. And this movement causes, it actually pulls, they're like pulleys on these wires, which is connected to something at the base of my spine as well. The effects of this are horrific, and it's multifaceted. I'll go into more depth with regards to the applications of this technology, but as well as mind control, it's also designed to torture, and it certainly does, believe me. That's the one I think. Yeah, you'll see that I've gone high-tech as well. I've actually got little arrows pointing to things now as well. This is done by another target who's got similar technology into me as well. If I get time, I'll talk to you a little bit about him today. This one isn't so clear, but what you can see where the arrows are pointing are two protrusions. Again, it looks like they're in my cochlear regions, but this is like the back of my jaw. I don't know this for sure, but I believe this is showing the protrusions that move. I really don't know, because I've seen pictures of the implants, the cochlear implants, and they also are quite elongated too. That's not the clearest of scans, but nonetheless, I've had doctors tell me that yes, that's an anomaly too. I might have to flick through one of these, excuse me, because I've literally just added some more to it that have been highlighted. marked. Ah, there we go. Excuse me. Voila. Can you see the probe there? Inserted into my brain? And again, the truss have explained, more pronounced. Now this one on this side, I've had some massive blows to my head in my time, massive. And one of these has obviously caused some damage to one of the implants, and you can see the fragments that have worked their way into my brain. Voila. This is another one taken on a completely different machine at a completely different hospital. And again, you can see here the brain implant is showing on one side, but he's also highlighted for me here the implants that are in my throat. These two here are probably likely to be the protrusions that I have, because that's exactly where they're situated, in the centre of my head, at the entrance to my throat, essentially. But the other smaller one here is definitely something too, because I've got well, they call it a cyst on this side, but this one's actually burst. The doctors have refused to touch this. They're refusing to take anything out of me, essentially. And I'm faffing about with all this. Let me explain to you how this works. Okay, this is mind control technology, and it works off something called ELF radio waves. Excuse me again. Now, ELF radio waves, extremely low frequency radio waves, can penetrate human tissue. So essentially what I've got here attached to my brain are ICT implants, information communication technology. And think of it really like a two-way radio loop, input, output. If you all read the mainstream press, there's an awful lot about supercomputers at the moment and what good they can do for us, run the medical system, blah, 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 blah. But essentially that's what I'm hooked up to. Now, these supercomputers are far, far more powerful than the human brain, and they can manage, well, so I read, several thousand people simultaneously. But what they can also do is translate the brain's electrical activity instantly. But not only that, alter that electrical activity as well and send it back in. Hence, mind control. They can take control. As I've explained before, the concentration of the wetware I've got is at the back of my head. There's another scan I've got that I couldn't quite pull off. There's a white block. It looks quite large on this. And this also is integrated into my brain at the back, but I couldn't pull that one off. But the concentration is there and at the base of my spine. Now this is top and tail. This is my central nervous system linked directly into my brain. And as I've explained, the rest of me is thereafter wired up. So, quite literally, I can be taken complete control of. It does range from very subtle to complete, and this technology is being developed for soldiers. A lot of you you'll be more educated on the Super Soldier program than I am, because essentially for years and years I've largely ignored what's going on the internet, and I've been hammering away at official bodies, governmental ones, medical ones, law enforcement, again, right across the board. And I also used to work in the media industry too. I used to own a headhunting organisation, and I dealt with the newspapers, television stations, radio stations, and I was quite well known in certain circles. And when all this came to the fore, I felt like I had the world at my feet, to be frank with you. I was set to make an absolute fortune. I had people wanted to back me in business. But things changed. Could I have some more water? I really am struggling a bit here, actually, to be honest with you. Yeah, you'll have to bear with me. I'm not always myself. I'm quite adversely affected by this at times, and at the moment my nervous system is going. I'm not particularly nervous. One of the things I hate about this technology the most, aside of the pain, because it is electromagnetically programmed pain, for whatever reasons, I assume it's just to subdue me. Thank you very much.
I can actually zoom in on any images if you give me a nod.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. But I think, just to take you back a bit to those scans, you know, when I spoke to an audience last time, we got 200 people there, and as I did to yourselves, I said, look, is there anybody who doubts the legitimacy of the evidence I've just shown you and what Moo had said in the initial video? Nobody did. Now, what people can't seem to get their heads around is that when me or other targets, we get categoric proof of what's been done to us and what we're going through. I can't imagine a worse scenario. I can't imagine being in a worse position. I really can't. But the problem a lot of targets have, right, I mean, when the problems really, really start, is when they seek help. They go to a doctor, or they go to the police, or they go to the media. You know, all the avenues we take for granted as citizens of a country, they're denied us, or they actually actively work against us. You wouldn't believe how many doctors have lied about those scans. And you also wouldn't believe how many medical professionals have turned around and said, well, you know, there's no denying this, these are foreign bodies in your head, yes. But they won't help. And if they try to help, they're prevented from doing so future-wise. In other words, there's a glass ceiling in place. And I've tested things to the hilt, right across the board. There is categorically absolutely no way that I shouldn't have had an operation by now to get this stuff out of my body, but they haven't facilitated this at all. All they've done is they've awarded me disability benefits, for which I had to fight tooth and nail for, I will add. But after I'd fought tooth and nail and taken it to a tribunal and won that, I'd also been fighting tooth and nail for them to remove my wisdom teeth for 4 years. The wisdom teeth were growing into the same area that these implants occupied. And at that time in my life, I literally did at times appear like somebody who was catatonic. You know, I was crunched up, you know, I was paralysed quite often down one side. And over again, repeatedly, I was being turned away from hospitals. This was with private dentists referring me as well, you know, with hands in the air going, my God, you know, you're in emergency treatment, you're in emergency case, they've got to treat you. But they continued refusing me treatment, so I went back to see my dentist, and he saved my life essentially, because I was that close to sort of like caving in and giving up. My body couldn't have taken much more. I had years and years of this, so I had to give him my personal assurance that if he operated on me under local anaesthetic, if there was any further complications, it wouldn't come back on him. I of course gave him my permission, and I got my life back. Within 24 hours, you know, I'd gone from this crumpled figure, my head was back up again, and my shoulders had relaxed, and he told me he couldn't take the other one out. This is an unemployed person here, and I had to go and borrow £1,600 to get back to work. The point I'm trying to make here, actually, I'm generally a lot more animated than I am now, but my nervous system is being whacked right now. But the point I'm trying to make is the system works against us, even when we've got the proof. But so do the general public, because the general public does not want to accept this. It's probably very different with people like yourself, because you're here, because you're truth seekers, you want to know what's going on. But I literally am proof. You know, my body is a crime scene. I've had this accepted right across the board. But I'm at a point now where I'm, you know, what do I do? And quite a few people have been at pains to sort of like ask me not to associate myself with people, well, not people, with the marketplace essentially, because I wasn't that aware of it. The ufologists, the extraterrestrial side. I know that's why you're all here today, and I must admit my mind has changed since I've met Miles and a lot of the other people he knows. The evidence, a lot of the evidence I've seen is irrefutable, but I tend to keep things very, very basic and very matter of fact, because, you know, like the police have said to me, this is black and white, even we can see that, you know, without talking to a doctor. This stuff is inside of me. But nobody knows, or hardly anybody knows. And the reason for that is because we're suppressed in just about every other way going as well. I used to be a board level salesperson. I could earn an awful lot of money, but I've been living on, you know, a pittance now for years, whilst I've been being, you know, hammered, you know, via remote microwave-based invisible directed energy weaponry. They call it non-lethal weaponry, but it is literally being used on the population to varying degrees. I'm an extreme, you know, example, but we're all, I think you're probably all aware of this to a degree, we're all actually being manipulated, as I said, to a greater or lesser degree, but targets are essentially being assassinated, tortured and killed in their own homes. And it's not as if the authorities can actually plead ignorance, or the media industry. They can't either, because they're totally aware that it's going on, and they present us, you know, constantly with this bloody, excuse my French, with this pantomime, which we're all trying to make sense of, when essentially there's enough information for them, you know, to be concise, to tell us exactly what's going on, but they're actively deceiving us, just as they're actively denying this. So, you know, I mean, the point I've wanted to make it earlier on here is this is not theoretical, this is factual. So we've got the evidence, you know. We've also got the will, you know, to do something about this. And I'm not speaking just for myself here, I'm talking hundreds, thousands of people in my circumstances. Not necessarily with, you know, the evidence to back up their claims, but nonetheless, as a collective, you know, it would be possible to be definitive with regards to who is genuinely being targeted and who is not. As I was touching on, the will isn't there to do anything about it within official circles. This is the situation that's got to change, and I believe this is what Miles was alluding to when he was talking to you as well. But it's, you know, I mean, what can we do? You know, as normal, regular people, when we're dealing with the, you know, the military-industrial complex that's hidden behind layers and layers of laws which are specifically designed to keep things secret, to keep things from us. And I can talk about this program that I live within till the cows come home. And it started, again, as Miles alluded to, with the Nazis during the Second World War in the concentration camps. All of us know about this. You know, if we don't know exactly what was going on, we know that they were doing experiments on human beings, and essentially the likes of myself, Moo, and other people are just the byproduct of that. What's happened is that they've just gone ahead and done what Hitler was planning to do. And again, so you have to excuse me, I really am, you know, suffering a little bit here. I can generally, you know, I can generally deal with it and get on and run my life, but this is a horror show, an absolute horror show. And I must admit, I've got myself a little bit tied up in knots and lost here. Very, very different to last time where I just walked out and spieled it. But I'm kind of glad in a way, to be honest with you, because I wanted to take things to another level, because it's on the net now, and I've been contacted, you know, by some very, very serious people, doctors even, soldiers, the works. I've explained it once, and I came here to try and build upon this and reach a point at which we could perhaps talk about solutions. I am meeting, you know, quite a lot of people off the back of this, and we're hopefully looking to implement some sort of systems to link up targets and to help them. But the problem we've got these days, even the organisations that are established say to me that we literally can't change people's situations, and every time we're presented with a target, what we have is a person who is really hoping and praying, you know, that we can do something about their individual circumstances, and the fact is we can't. When most of you get, you know, an ailment or a problem, you go to a doctor and, you know, they'll either prescribe you medicines initially, or they'll refer you to a specialist and you'll discuss matters and they'll come to some conclusions with regards to a diagnosis and help you out. We don't, we get lied to, and then we go home and we get tortured. Yeah. So it is about where do we go from here. Right, yeah. You have to excuse me, really. I mean, it is quite obscene what I deal with. When I'm doing this, you can probably hear the clicking. That's the pressure of these implants twisting and pulling at the back of my jaw. Remember, these are attached to my skeleton as well? It is horrific. And it's a global problem. It's not just a British problem. I was reading only last week, a friend of mine sent me an article from The Guardian in Australia relating to some new laws that they've just passed. Now these laws were to do with the security services, national security basically, and given that these laws have just been brought in, now they can arrest any whistleblower and any journalist and imprison them for doing what journalists and whistleblowers do, essentially. But not only that, giving their own agents impunity in the eyes of the law to commit criminal offences. But even more disturbing still to me, to this, was the fact that they explained that within the chamber at the time, when this law was going through, they said it was very upbeat, the mood. And I saw a video of this, and they were so chuffed. Like this, we can do whatever we want, basically, now, and no one can touch us. And that's, as I see it, that's what I've been dealing with all my life. We have an us and them situation. And I will say, currently, to a degree, we've got you lot too in the middle. So you're like, you know, the tennis net, basically, and we've got the targets on one side and the perpetrators on the other, and you lot in the middle. And us and them. But this does involve absolutely everybody, because I've been talking to experts from around the world for a few years now, and they can't answer all the questions either. But one of the things that comes up regularly is, how far has this program been developed? How far down the road are they? And some of these people purport that already in children's hospitals and maternity wards and the like, that children are being intravenously injected with technology, or immediately after birth, some of them, directly into the brain. Now, what I'm wearing here was put into me when I was a child. In 1975, I went to Africa to live in Nigeria, and at least what's in my head was put into me then. I can elaborate on the rest of the stuff further. Now, this was what, 1975, which was a very long time ago. I'm quite an old man now. But these days, of course, we have nanotechnology. And we're talking minute technology. And as I've just mentioned there, this can be intravenously injected into a new host, because the needle, the implant opens up like an umbrella once it exits the needle into the vein, and then the blood will carry this implant around the body, and it will lodge into the brain, and thereafter that new host can be targeted in much the same way that I can. They can take complete control of that person's life if they wish. But not only that, they can monitor everything too. And it starts to sound a little bit too fantastical when you explain the realities of this technology. The applications essentially are infinite, really. They know what I'm thinking. They know what I'm going to say. They can make me think something, and they can make me say something. They can make me do something, and they can stop me doing something. And I've had demonstrations of this, and been in all sorts of situations where obviously I can't always differentiate myself between whether something was me or whether it was something that was done to me. But it's a reality. So we are, all of us, you know, we are facing, you know, a new age. An age in which we're all going to be constantly and simultaneously monitored and or controlled via technological means, via satellite communications. This is a reality. There's no questions, you know, unanswered with regards to What this can do, where it's going, there are. But I could literally present, which I have done. I've got so many stories to tell. That's probably what I should do, actually, with regards to these events, is just walk out and tell some stories with regards to what I've been through, because it would rock you to your core and shock you to your cores as well. And I've spent hours and hours and hours, as I said, with all sorts of professionals, but also psychiatrists and psychologists. And I've educated them. And subsequently too, they've all found out that they get jumped on from a great height if they try to help me or anybody in my position as well. And it shocks them because they're not all aware of it, but they're becoming more and more aware of it as well. But I mean, do we want it? We've not really been asked, have we? We don't really have many choices these days. The political system is rigged. We go to the supermarket, we don't want to eat most of the food that's presented to us. We think, right, we'll go and shop somewhere else, and we find out well, either we can't find what we want or we can't afford to buy what we want elsewhere. They are taking absolute total control of us. And it's, again, I'm deliberating here about how far I should take things here today, because I could scare the wits off of all of you with regards to what I know and what's going on. But I really don't want to be giving out, purely just my opinions. But as far as I'm concerned, I'm not just talking future-wise. One of the applications of this technology is depopulation. It's fascism, essentially. It's fascism. Now, my part in all of this, again, I could talk forever and a day on that subject too. So, yeah, I think we're all aware that this is coming at us via the security services, via the intelligence community, quote, that we pay for, that are passing laws in the interest of national security. In other words, they're telling us it's to protect us. But I'm telling you, they're doing anything but, particularly our children. And they are intent on implanting each and every one of us, basically. So the burning question is, well, I'm telling you, we shouldn't accept it. The mainstream media at the moment is conditioning. That's the phase we're at the moment. They're conditioning the population to accept this technology. They're selling the benefits of it to us. There's examples of this on my blog. They use medical sort of like medical reasoning, essentially. They talk about things like drug addiction, for instance. They're telling us, they can put a microchip in somebody's brain, which is true, and erase the fact that they were ever, within their minds that is, that they were ever an addict. So they can take a heroin addict and make them forget they were a heroin addict, so they can cure them of their addiction. This is brilliant. But the thing is, they'll sell this to a heroin addict, they'll get the chip in there, but they don't tell them about all the other capabilities. They don't tell them that for the rest of their lives, 24/7, they will be monitored constantly. That there'll be absolutely zero privacy. Now this is, it's of course disturbing and it's shocking, and I'm running into a cul-de-sac because my mind really is full of things I want to say, and I've been very, very confused over the last week or two with regards to all the input I'm getting from other people as to where I should take this. And also, I'm very, very confused about all this alien stuff myself as well, because I've paid it no credence at all for years and years. I'm just like, no, they're using that to cover things up. I had a lady contact me who wanted to show my scans on breakfast television. And I asked her, I said, well, in what context? She said, well, as an example of somebody who's implanted with alien technology. And immediately I said, absolutely no way. I said, you'll discredit me instantly if you claim that. And I said, look, I'm not allowed I'm not allowed to be on mainstream television. The newspapers aren't allowed to write about me. They've interviewed me, the national press, and they were thereafter served the D notice, which essentially means, in the interest of national security, they weren't allowed to write about me. And I will add that it wasn't because the journalists didn't want to go to print. In their words, it was the biggest story they'd ever encountered. But they were stopped. Now, they invited this lady onto mainstream television to talk about aliens and the like, because I'm not going to say whether it's true, because I've seen so much evidence, it seems undeniable to me as well, but it's not tangible, is it? We don't have categoric evidence. So therefore, you know, to me, it represents subterfuge. And as far as I'm concerned, and I've had this conversation with, you know, some senior lawmen as well, I've got the evidence. You know, not only that, I know lots of other people who've got the evidence as well. But yet we can't find, and I could give you lots of stories again along these lines which would emphasise what I'm trying to say here, apart from this one man, that is, whose name I will keep secret, no one can find a solicitor, a barrister, or anybody who will represent them in court. And I've been told why. Because a very, very senior member of the Law Society explained to me that they've been told in no uncertain terms that if any of them take a case relating to this, they won't be practicing law for much longer, or even worse. So in other words, they're threatening themselves. This is a cancer, an artificial one that's being foisted upon us, and we're being given no choice. There's no debate, and there's no debate because, well, essentially, active denial. There are global intelligence agreements in place to suppress and deny any information relating to the deployment or usage of this technology at all. And one of the best ways to convey all this to people like yourselves would be to tell my own stories and talk about myself and the like. But I spoke to somebody who's very, very well educated a few days ago. Somebody had watched my other video and listened to me interviewed on the radio, and he said, "Look, Kieron, this isn't about you." And I said, "Well, you know, I hear where you're coming from." He said, "It's not about me, it's not about any target. It's about all of us, each and every single one of us. It's about the bigger picture, it's about doing something about this. We need debate." Hats off to people who put on events like this, the likes of Miles, who comes in for an awful lot of criticism, Miles, but Miles gets the information and he throws it out there, and then we've all got the benefit of hindsight. It's so valuable, hindsight, because the information is in place. Miles is a star because he's putting the information there and he's taking the flak, and he knows full well some of it's going to turn out to be, it could be used to discredit himself or people like ourselves that take an interest in the like. But we're all aware of that as well. What we want to do is we want it boiled down, and we want to understand what it is we're dealing with here. I think that's why we're all here, truth seekers. But I repeat, I'm not the only one. We can prove this, and we can prove it categorically. And we are saying to all and sundry, please, you know, help us. And the first thing that we need from people, generally speaking, is acceptance. We need people just to accept this. I'm telling you now, this is black and white. It's undeniable. I've got a lot more scans on there I could run through, but some of them are quite new to me with regards to the markings. But I don't think I need to dwell. And you know, just go onto my blog, go onto my Google Plus page, and you'll see enough evidence there from not just myself, people like a Dr. Barry Trower, a retired naval microwave weapons expert, who explains exactly how this technology works, exactly how people are targeted. They can target any nerve in the human body. They can inflict pain on anyone, and you don't need to be implanted either, because we all have an individual bioelectric field, just like we have individual fingerprints. And these can be locked onto via computer, and an individual, should they choose to make you a target, can thereafter be monitored just as I am and targeted just as I am. And it is where it's going, isn't it? But I mean it when I say your government knows about this. I've got letters from the House of Commons acknowledging the technology inside of me. And the second time I went to meet with my MP, I took him another British man, a Scottish man. And John, his name is John Nicholson. And he's living in Peru at the moment, and has been for quite some time. And John is he's been having a series of operations for the last few years. Not only has he been having the operations, he's been filming them. He's been retaining the implants. And he's then been, he's got his own website as well. I'll give you that address. It's baeimplantworld.com. Now, again, there's an awful lot I could tell you about John and the relationship I've had with him as well. But I do owe him an apology to a degree, but that's something else I'll move on to shortly. But anyway, John came to see me after fleeing an operating theatre in Peru, because over there it's the police that help him set up these interviews. They find the doctors and they provide the security. He won't have a general anaesthetic, he'll only have local. And it's basically, the exercise is not just ridding himself of some of this technology, it's gathering the evidence. But just prior to this trip over to see me, they put general anaesthetic in the needle, knocked him out, and put more technology into him. And when he came around, he still had open wounds. And he got straight on a plane, flew over, came to see me, and said, look, I need stitching up. Literally, I'm still open. This is a kind of horror, the kind of terror that we have to deal with to get anything done. And I took him immediately to see my GP. He was a very good man. It was a Friday night, unfortunately, and they offered to provide him with a nurse when we returned. And thereafter, I then took him to my MP, who'd already been, briefed. He'd seen my scans and other evidence of it, and they'd invited me back in. But I went in with John, and John's evidence of, mine's categoric, but crumbs, what that man has managed to collate and what he's been through in collating it is just, well, you just read his website, take it in for yourselves and try and put yourselves in his position. But, there I am. We've got all the evidence, in the world, and this is what our MP did. He sat there and he rocked like Humpty Dumpty in the corner of the office, and he flatly refused to help us. And I questioned him a little bit further, and again flatly refused. I don't need to go into what happened beyond that, but I threatened him, and I meant it. And what I want to do is revisit all these people. Not just people, individuals, institutions that should be our birthrights, institutions that our ancestors, not only fought and died for, but, worked all their lives for. And yet they're all working against us. They're all involved in this. Believe me, they know. Not necessarily everybody that works within them. I deal with a lot of other targets, and I have to reassure them that every police officer doesn't know what's going on here. They certainly don't. Every doctor doesn't. Every nurse doesn't. Only a certain amount of them. But nonetheless, there are enough now, and we've got enough evidence, and it's farcical for them to turn around and say that this isn't true, but that's what they're doing. But because that's happening, people like yourselves still haven't woken up to the fact, really, that this is literally going on in our lifetimes. And if we don't do something about it, if we don't organise, it's not going to decrease this activity, it's going to increase. And just because you're not in the police or you're not in the army or whatever, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get implanted. It certainly doesn't. So again, I've got more evidence here that I could run through. I've got a lot more evidence that I could get from other targets. The chap, by the way, who did the outlines on my scans, I only got these on the train yesterday coming up, hence I wasn't that organised. He tells me that the implants I've got at the back of my jaw, he tells me that he's got the same, or at least had the same, because he got so desperate, this is how bad it is, that he took a pair of pliers and a scalpel to the back of his mouth and pulled out one of these implants with a pair of pliers. And his dentist now tells him that he's still got a piece of metal lodged into his upper jaw as well. So he said, what I've pulled out, Kieran, essentially, is one of those finger implants that you've got. And he said, I can tell you now that it was full of fibres, which concurs totally with photographs that I've got of such cochlear implants as well, because they're made of carbon fibres, and they're transparent. You can see through them. So again, you know, I'll emphasise the fact that we have the evidence. What we don't have is professionals with the will to do anything about it. But believe me, we're not just scratching the surface here. We're looking at, you know, if this breaks, you know, the world is going to change. This is what journalists have said to me. I've received the phone calls where they've been expecting things to break in the news. Look, we're calling up to see if you're all right, Kieran. Can you deal with this? I said, look, I can deal with anything, basically. I've been dealing with this for decades. Just bring it on. Let's just get it going. And then, you know, and then it doesn't happen. And we are talking hardcore hacks here that have been investigating military backups themselves for decades, that get very, very, very excited when they see this evidence, because even they, you know, even they are the belief. Now we've got such categoric evidence, it's got to happen, but it doesn't. We're being lied to. And as I told my MP, this is torture and this is murder. Justify it to me, please, because I have literally been tortured for year after year after year. And when I say torture, sometimes I mean it goes on for months, weeks or months, and at times I just don't see other human beings, or barely, because, you know, we can be bloody awful. We really can. You know, the people that are actually appealing for help, but because what those people are talking about, it doesn't ring true, we pillory them. I make allowances for human nature, you know, the negative traits as well as the positive traits. But honestly, the suffering that I've encountered, not just my own, other people, it's just, it beggars belief that it could actually be going on and that these people cannot get any help. And we all learnt about the Dark Ages when we were at school, and dungeons and torture and the like. And we think of it as something that happened in another eon, or well, it was another age and the like, but the similar sort of thing is going off today up and down our country. We've got people who are confined to their own homes, who are literally being tortured via electromagnetic means, and the general public and the media and the medical establishment is dismissing them. And our psychiatric hospitals are full of these people, and they don't have any form of, well, that's not strictly true, because anybody that's implanted with this and tortured and manipulated by it is going to be affected, you know, psychologically. I mean, that's a given. But they certainly don't have the biological or the clinical mental disorders that they're being treated for. So, in other words, the treatments they're getting aren't appropriate. And I talked about that in my on a radio interview that I gave recently as well. Again, I could elaborate that on that to the nth degree. So, without wishing to go round and round in circles here, I'll try and round up and take some questions from you as well. I think that might be a good way to go here before I depart. But just want to make this clear as well. It's during Mr. Bush's administration in America, they actually made it illegal to remove this technology from people. At the same time, they're denying it actually exists, or it's actually being deployed and used. This is literally what we're up against. Now, I can talk an awful lot more about this, but I write about this, and if any of you look at my blog, it's a little bit disjointed because I've written it over a number of years, and a lot of the time when I've been being horrifically tortured, it's just a way of taking out my angst and putting the information out. But it is, the evidence is cumulative, it is building up, and I am telling a story, my own story. And again, I started off with Moo here today. Moo is just one of so many adults that have grown up to find out that they were trafficked as children, but they had no knowledge of it. Miles alluded to Monarch, the Monarch mind control program. I'm a Monarch. I believe Moo's a Monarch. I told you before, I've spent hours and hours with psychiatrists and psychologists now, and last time I was with them, I said, look, you know, I'll give you a diagnosis. Not one of you has managed to come up with a diagnosis with regards to me. I am DID. Dissociative identity disorder, multiple personality syndrome essentially. But this isn't an illness, this is something that's been done to me. And they've been working on me since I was a child. I have a very, very pronounced soldier alter that started to come to the fore when I was in my kind of sort of like mid-30s essentially. And this is, you know, so I've learned with regards to targets, is quite the norm, because the psychological barriers in place which hide these alters start to break down. And this is when, you know, I started to become aware of what was wrong with me, but I certainly didn't know about the technology. But again, I do now. So I suppose what I'm trying to say is, look folks, you know, this is black and white. This is happening right now, and if we don't do something about it, your children are going to be wearing technology, if they're not already, some of them. And I don't expect you all to walk away from here and get on it and do something, because I've been dealing with people who are experts, people who are educated in some of the foremost institutions around the world, that are also targets themselves that can't find a way to counter this. So no. Again, if you read my blog, you'll find out on there that when I write about this, essentially with regard to getting something done, that you'll all arrive at a point where you'll realise, you know, how futile it is trying to do anything about this. And as I put it, it's at that point in time that you'll realise that ignorance really was bliss. But we haven't got time to wallow in bliss anymore. We really do have to wake up, and we have to start talking to each other and accepting this. When I went on the internet after doing the last speech I did at Miles, of course I got the trolls. Idiots, absolute idiots. You know, they are poking fun at people being tortured and murdered, and I educated a few of them, and I changed the perspectives, and I got apologies, and they started coming back to me and saying, well, what can we do without having to endure what you're enduring, you know, being targeted yourselves, taking that risk? And I said, well, that risk is, you know, it's there's nothing, I don't control things, so I can't tell you you're not taking a risk. But the fact is, if we don't do something collectively, they're going to have us all individually. It's as simple as that. Sure. Well, I was actually going to suggest then that you know, I've stood up here, and I do apologise for the lack of structure involved, but that's what I'm trying to say to you. You know, my body is a crime scene. You've seen the evidence. You know, we've got the facts. It's not essentially a financial issue either, although it's going to take money for you, George. I've been offered money off of people, which I've declined. But until a certain point in time, whereas I know, I guarantee I can use that money effectively, because we have spent, through other people I know, tens of thousands of pounds on trying to get things done, but the medical establishment blocks us. They present doctors who deny the evidence, and then psychiatrists who claim that the people we're putting forward are suffering from differing forms of mental illness. So yeah, I mean, basically that's the bottom line. We've got the facts. We're supposed to be, you know, one of the most advanced civilizations on the planet. This is Britain. You know, our legal system goes back to the Magna Carta, whatever you want to, whatever example you want to put forward. And you're telling me we can't do anything about it? I mean, black and white, absolute proofs. And I'll tell you the biggest obstacle to us getting anywhere with this, and I mean no disrespect to any of you, is Joe Public. The sooner each and every civilian in this country wakes up and accepts what is black and white, what is proof here, the sooner solicitors, police officers and doctors, the good ones that want to do their jobs properly and help us, can step to the fore and do so. And yeah, there's things I don't want to say, which is another reason why, you know, I've been a little bit disjointed today. I am a very, very highly trained salesperson. I can put forward a presentation which is perfectly structured to lead towards a close. But guys, you know, There is no end to this. Not for us targets. This is a living hell. This is on a par with the concentration camps. In fact, that's exactly what it is. That's what us targets exist within, a technological concentration camp. And if you've seen the state of it, I mean, people that I know locally to me, they see me one day, they say, God, Kieran, yesterday you look like you're going to have a heart attack. You look brilliant today. And I go, oh, it's just the way it is for me. I'm not being targeted today. So, you know, I feel fine. You know, my body seems to recover quite quickly. But again, that at night it can just change. They switch on the microwave weaponry and there's no escape from it. You're literally lying in your bed being microwaved and cooked. Right, if our country's going to amount to anything, if we as a nation are going to matter us all future-wise, I like to think that we're the nation that's going to sort of like do something about this. I really do. And as I said to you, the first stage, the first step that needs to be taken for us to do something is for all of us to stop denying this. All of us. Everywhere. And if anybody does try to talk it down, you've just got to turn around and say, stop being stupid, it's been proven now. And if that happens, we can literally do something about this. If it doesn't, we can't. And I'm going to leave it there just because I want you to see my emotion. I want you to see that I mean this. I want you to see that I've got no reason to lie whatsoever. There's so much more I could tell you about my own circumstances, about other people. But as Moose said at the end of the last video, I'm about sick of this crap. And it's about time we fucking did something about it. Sorry? Yeah. Sorry, you mentioned Faraday cage. I know of them. I get all sorts thrown at me. People say you can do this, you can do that, but you've got to bear in mind that when you've been living with something for decades, you know, my entire life, it revolves around managing what I deal with. You know, I hate using the term, but if they wanted to stop me coming here today, I could have been stopped. I'm telling you now, I've been made to feel very uncomfortable. I'm not nervous at all. One of the things I hate about this technology the much is the fact that it can manipulate your emotions. It can make you seem nervous when the last thing you are is nervous. It can make you agitated when you're not feeling agitated. It's just finite manipulation. It essentially revolves around disempowerment and humiliation. That's what a target goes through. And when they're going through it, you know, one of the biggest dangers, again I'll emphasize, is the people around them, because they have no comprehension of this, no understanding of it. And yes, thank you for bringing that up, because there are a lot of people as well trying to make money off of people like us as well, you know, professing that this will help, that'll help. But, you know, I want to live a life. You know, I'm somebody who used to play like 2 football matches and a rugby match a week, and you know, I trained twice a week as well. You know, I had full life. You know, I ran my own company. Literally, I can't commit to anything now. Really, definitely, my whole life literally is controlled, and a lot of the time I'd rather not be around. I mean, I deal with it because I can focus on the future. Like I know this will stop, so therefore I've just got to deal with it and hang on in there. But I mean, I shouldn't really be being tortured, and neither should anybody else, should they? But, sorry.
So I was wondering if you've got any evidence that suicide bombers are under control.
Any evidence?
Suicide bombers.
Sorry?
Suicide bombers. Out in Paris, by the police.
Suicide?
Suicide bombers.
Remotely controlled suicide bomb.
Whoa, have I got any evidence? I think it's as good as given. Yeah, this isn't something that, you know, we're looking at, you know, there's just a few isolated people. This is something that has been going on for a very, very long time. It's a global network and it's in place. And yeah, I can as good as guarantee you that it's used to instigate, what do they call them, red flag events or Yeah. So I think, you know, categorically, have I got any evidence that this whole system is based around leaving no evidence. Like it's a silent kill. They can take somebody out. There's no evidence trail, so therefore there's no crime being committed. It's likewise with what you're alluding to there. Has it been used? I think the Oklahoma bomber was a mind control target. What's his name? Scottish. Yeah, you know who I mean anyway. I do believe he was a mind control target, yeah. I also believe a lot of the famous people that we watch on our silver screens, film stars and the like, are mind control targets. It's the way things work. If somebody becomes globally famous, it makes them potentially a dangerous person, because people will start to listen to them. So given that, yes, essentially, most of them are products of the system. And I'll tell you as well, I've been studying this for a while too, and I initially latched onto it with regards to something I watched on the internet, but the most incredible thing I've seen for ages was a video I was just watching. It was just on a crowd of people. It was almost like an electricity, was going through these people, and they were surging forward, and I thought, what the hell's going on here? It was a young Barack Obama. He was speaking, and people were reacting. It was incredible. I mean, what a man. But I tell you what, as good as guaranteed, he's got this crap inside of him as well. I tell you, as good as guaranteed.
I think there is evidence that in the first Iraq War, Gulf War, and the Second War, the armies were surrendering in weird fashion. And they were probably being targeted with certain emotions you're experiencing. Lots of the soldiers are just throwing their guns down for no apparent reason.
Yeah.
And I think that's documented as well.
Well,
some sort of mind control technology.
Yeah, even prior to that, you go back to the rallies, the Nazi rallies in Germany. They were, you know, they whipped the crowd up into a frenzy while Hitler was speaking. They were beaming microwave technologies into the crowd to give them a euphoric feeling. Again, I've looked into an awful lot more as well. In the future, you're going to be able to walk into a bar, and you won't even need a drink to feel good and the like. Just basically what they're pumping at you is going to make you feel fantastic. So you won't need to take anything or drink. Yes, yeah. It's finite. Literally, it's infinite what they can do. You know, they can see what I see, hear what I hear, smell what I smell. They've been at it for a very, very, very long time, and I've experienced, you know, some of it actively and some of it as demonstrations. Because there's an awful lot more I could tell you about myself. And again, I more or less tore my speech up here today because it was all going to be about me. And other people have been imploring me not to talk about me, but to talk about the general picture. So, you know, this is essentially what I've done. But yeah, don't question this stuff. Don't question it. It's real. And there are an awful lot of people an awful lot of them are dead already. Probably an awful lot more that will die. There are people in prison. There are people in psychiatric hospitals that really shouldn't be there. But yes, you're correct. With regards to I said this myself in the Iraq War. It's not. I didn't think they'd be able to sort of like, you know, stand up to the likes of us and the Americans, but I thought they'd put up a lot more fight than they did. And I've seen photographs of Iraqi soldiers, all their kit intact, but all their flesh is burned because they've used microwave weaponry on them. So, you know, from a distance, it's invisible. So basically what they've done is they've just cooked them. And the evidence is there, you know, because everything else is intact. There's no bullet wounds, there's no nothing, it's just burnt flesh and clothes. So yes, they're using it. Okay. We done? Yeah. All right.
Break on last senior, Thomas, Dr. Steve Gordon.
Well, what do you want to say? Is it still mic'd up?
They're on there, love, yeah.
So who's behind all of this? The Illuminati or?
I say so, yeah. So, well, mine's all military experience. You know, I mean, I basically, you know, I get talked to in my head a lot all the time, but it's military intelligence that's guided me. This is all, and all my research traces it back to that as well. We're actually, we're at war. It started in 1954, but because the weaponry that's being used is invisible, the general populace hasn't woken up. But it's not our army against another army, it's these global elites, whatever they are, on the world's population. Because what they, you know, this is my thinking, and what they're trying to do is create a future utopia. They want to reduce the globe's population to 500 million, and that'll leave them enough people to do all the work for them and maintain things, whereas they live...
When you see that, you're talking about the elites.
Well, yeah, it's a vague term, isn't it?
Yeah.
But essentially, I believe it's, you know, if we needed to come up with a body that's representative of them, I would say the intelligence.
Are they yours?
Yes, they are, yeah.
Oh,
So, like Sir James Casbolt and all these other monarch people, they all have been wired up. And I didn't hear all the talk. Are they all been wired up, all these project buildings?
I don't know that to be, in fact, you don't need to be, because they start, you know, as I said, this speech is quite disjointed, but I'm having quite a hard time at the moment, I am. I mean, they start on children. They start on children when they're in the womb. It's natural. It's a natural reaction. The human mind reacts to torture by, you know, it tries to perform another personality in order to cope with torture. And they're doing this quite purposefully. I mean, military arms have been doing it forever and a day, but so are cults. And they start quite often while a child's in the womb by inflicting trauma then and then throughout their lives. But these altars are buried and they're hidden. Sorry, what was your question initially again? I am actually, this is awful, I'm not normally this bad when I'm in public, but my nervous system is being...
So the monarch people like James Campbell and all them, I just wondered they'd all been, they're mind controlled, aren't they? So, but you're wired up, you've got all wired and
yeah, literally. Well, the thing is, it's very possible that they've got technology inside them and don't know. I mean, I've had police look at my scanners. So you trying to tell me that some of our lot are walking around with this inside them and don't know it? I just said, no, I can just guarantee it. We're the ones most at risk. The most likely to be in.
Doing doctors and nurses.
Yeah, medical staff as well. Oh, they're totally aware of it. Believe me, in hospitals.
I'm sure my sister's a nurse. She's the same husband as me. I work with her. I'm sure she's not aware of it at all.
She's not, no.
They don't know anything about the New World Order, don't know anything about anything.
Yeah, exactly.
And if I talk about it, they ridicule me.
Yeah, well, that's their most powerful weapon.
What made you aware of the implants in the... What was the
pain?
The pain.
Yeah, it's designed to inflict pain as well. It goes one way and the other. You can go. There's lots of benefits. You know, it can give you enhanced abilities, but then it goes totally the other way. And
you to suffer pain. I mean,
trauma-based.
Shut up.
And it's almost trauma-based, but these days it's become trauma-y. I mean, I was in a position where I owned my own company in the corporate sector, and I knew journalists and everybody else, and I started speaking out about it, so they started hammering me and making things very, very difficult. Hence, standing up there, last time I stood up, I was in pain, it was different, just pain, but today, it's my nerves. I'm doing this a lot as well, and it's totally debilitating. It makes it very, very difficult to live life normally.
Do you think that the Heart Project is interconnected?
Yeah, it's linked. Yeah.
Is that going to be the global
is it Beatmax or VHS? You know, I'm not that technical. I'm a bit of a technical dyslexia. I just deal with it. Yeah. But yeah, that's part of it, and it's not one-dimensional. It's not just a British system. The collusion is there within the Russian elite, the American elite. You know, right around the world, just about every country on the planet.
Would it explain why they've got one of these stations in just about every country?
Yeah,
I'm upset. We lived in New Zealand.
Have you how it first happened?
Yeah, when I was 10 years old. I woke up just in horrific pain and had a load of lies told me. Obviously, I Oh yeah, no, well the doctor told me what was wrong with me, and he said this is done to you under general anaesthetic. You have to be under general anaesthetic. So he was asking me questions as to where and when I've had operations. And he said, well, no wonder you don't like dentists. Sarah's like a dentist who goes to you. So his doctor told me initially what's wrong with me, yeah.
You don't know. You don't look like you.
Oh, no, I mean, I was out cold, wasn't I? But, I mean, my family, my mother gave me yeah. I'm from a military family.
You never thought about the actually big notice.
Well, I've taken all sorts of advice, but the thing is, even experts, psychiatrists, psychologists, very senior ones, said, like, I'm not qualified. I've got no knowledge. This is beyond my
I don't look at the notice expert.
Apparently, the only people that can help me, I'm advisors.
Yes,
the sorts of
that's
people who
me.
put it in.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm planning to go to
And
Thailand.
if you want one of those, you get it for free. You buy a
To have
t-shirt.
these removed.
They're
A lot of people
athletic
don't know.
shirts, but they're not.
If you put it left,
That's not the best thing to do.
They're not quite.
It could almost
they're
be
not
like
quite.
some sort of life